Hi everyone, I'm Jess and I'm the School Liaison Officer here at STC.
Today is the first in our series of podcasts for National Careers Week, and today I am joined by Chris, who works in the police. So Chris is going to talk to us today about his career, what he enjoys most about it, and any top tips for people who are thinking about going into a career with the police. We'll start nice and easy then. So what is your job title?
My job title is a police constable.
Amazing. Did you know that you always wanted to be in the police? Was it something that you'd kind of always been set on doing? How did you kind of end up in the job that you're in?
Probably yes to the first part of the question. So yeah, I think I always did. To be honest, actually, I came across a national record of achievement file that I used to do when I was at school. So when I was leaving school, about 15, and in there, I think I'd written that I wanted to be a police officer.
No way.
Yeah. So it's always been there in the back of my head that that's something that I would like to do. I think though, life as with everybody's lives, kind of can take you down certain paths.
Yeah.
I've eventually sort of ended up back at this career, but it's definitely sort of hasn't been a straight line. I know some people do school, then uniform services at college or whatever, and then get straight into the force. Now, obviously, with the PCDA routes, you've got sort of to do the degree alongside your career if you haven't got one. But I very much did a bit of a windy path. So it was GCSEs, then I got some decent ones. So then went to college, did some A-levels, got some all right ones there. And then university was an option. So went to university in something completely unrelated.
Yeah.
I did geography. So it wasn't like I did chronology or anything like that. So, and then came out of university and I think by that point, you get it in your head that I've got to go and get a proper job. Get a professional job. Got to work in an office and put a suit on and all that kind of thing. Because I've got a degree, and went and did that for 5 years. Worked in an engineering firm, and it was great. I mean, all of that experience has been fantastic and has really helped me now. It's just that it's maybe not as direct a path probably as a lot of people, but at the same time, I work alongside lots of different people, and it's amazing how diverse of a background.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's huge. I mean, I think it's probably a great strength of the job is that, there's so much diversity and so many different experiences that they've sort of been pooled together. So you've always got somebody who's seen something or done something that you're coming across.
Yeah, because there are obviously different routes into it as a career, and I think that's so important, especially for young people to be aware of. And I think you were saying, obviously, your path hasn't been really kind of direct and really straightforward into going into the police, but that ultimately means you've got lots of kind of experience of other kind of fields and more of an awareness in that way. But in the same way that somebody who does go kind of that uniform services route kind of after school, they will then equally be prepared in a different way. It's just, I think that's what's so nice about kind of policing as a career. There are so many different routes into it, and you can decide kind of early on, that's definitely what I want to do, but you could also decide a few years down the line. So yeah, I think that's really interesting kind of that you've had that experience of something completely different.
I think as well, I think you're right. I think it's more about you as a person, and however you get to being that person doesn't really matter. It's just that at the end of the day that you fit, you're the right person for the job, and like I say, I don't think there's one particular formula that you need to have to get to that point. So that could come, like I say, sort of uniform services straight in, do your PCDA route, sort of work and get your degree alongside because you have to now, same as nursing. Or you go down a different path and something that you come to later, and it's how you're made up as a person more than probably some. I think some professions are very prescriptive. About you must have this, you must have that, you need to go and do. I mean, for instance, being like lawyers and solicitors, you need to go and do conversion courses or law practitioners courses. Then you need to get sort of time at the solicitors and do all these kind of things, hit all these things to get in. I think like I say with the police work, it's you find your own path a little bit to it.
Yeah, definitely. So I think you've kind of answered then. My next question would usually be, what did you want to do when you were younger if it wasn't the police? But obviously you've said that the police is something you have always wanted to do, which is great.
Yeah. I think to be honest, it wasn't like a definitive. It wasn't like I definitely want to be that, and I think that's probably why I've took the route I've took. I think for up until very recently, until I started applying for the police, I still wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with my career. And that meant that when good opportunities present themselves in whatever form they were, I took the good opportunity. Because I wasn't like on a set path. And it's taken me good 10 years, probably all told, to kind of get to this point where I'm in my head sure enough that this is the career I want.
Yeah, that's because obviously it's a big kind of dedication as well, isn't it? And like you are committing yourself to the police, at least for the time being. And I think that is kind of it's one of those things where, like you said, it's taken you 10 years to get to that point of thinking, I definitely I want to pursue this as a career now. But that's really interesting. Like I said, I think it's interesting that you've explored kind of other options and been flexible, because you weren't so kind of 100% set on police as a career. But obviously it's great that you have decided to do that now. So we've also spoken a little bit about your kind of route into the police. In terms of the application process and actually getting your job, how did you find that part of it?
It was a lot. I'm honest. It was a little bit trickier because my experience has been that working in the private sector, so working for private companies rather than a publicly funded company or business like the police or the nurse, NHS, that kind of thing. With the private sector, there's always probably a job somewhere. Maybe only one job. It may not be a mass 100-person recruitment like they are within the public sector, but there's always one. Whereas my experience of the public sector side of things has been that it's really, really tied to sort of funding levels. So for a large time in my previous job, the opportunity, unless I wanted to move away to work in a different force in a different area, the option just wasn't there. Because the funding wasn't there from central government, and therefore the recruitment wasn't there. The basic frozen recruitment. So I at the moment the recruitment window opened, I applied, but it took me 18 months to get in, and that was from initial application. So that's an electronic sort of, you do an initial test where they kind of determine whether you're sort of suitable, but that's really quite light. Just the kind of A, B, C, D, how would you react in these situations? Pick one, and then they say, you're suited, or you might not be suited, but it doesn't stop you. Then there's a sort of electronic application where you write, sort of 100 to 500 word responses against a variety of different questions, sort of slightly slanted towards police, but more kind of based upon your experiences and again, how you would react in sort of particular situations and scenarios. So once you get past that, then there's, a face-to-face interview, at least it was with me. And then that one was getting more policey. And I was lucky that I managed to speak to somebody in advance of that and get some bullet points as to the kind of things that we wanted you to talk to you about. So I didn't go in completely blind, which was really, really lucky. So from what I understand, there are resources out there that they do sort of past courses and things that you can pay for. I was lucky that I didn't have to do that, but that was good. So once you do the interview, there's then an assessment centre, which is probably the big deal. So that's a full day's worth of assessments. Mine was in a hotel. There was about 250, 300 of us there.
No way.
Yeah, and the day was composed of English and maths based testing. Then there was a statement writing challenge where you watched an incident on a video basically, and then you had to write a statement off the back of how best you thought you could write a statement. Then probably the biggest part of the day was the scenario based testing, where you have 2 minutes. You get given a bit of paper with some information on. You have 2 minutes. You have to prep yourself in that 2 minutes to go into a room and deal with a situation.
Play.
Role play, and I avoided role play as much as I possibly could at any point in my career. So that was a one that you have to sort of steel yourself for. yeah, you go to walk in, you just got to deal with it. And obviously at that point, you haven't really got much policing knowledge. It's more kind of just how you react as a person.
How you would react to, yeah,
how you think it's best to react in that situation. So go in, deal with that, then you'd come out and the buzzer would go again and you'd go to a different room with a bit of prep. So a different scenario, and then again you'd come out again and then go back in again, and that was probably the most demanding part of the day.
Yeah.
And then after that, assuming you've passed that, then they get into kind of your biometric testing to make sure that you haven't been a naughty boy.
Yeah.
That they can find. So that's fingerprints and things like that. Then also you're into sort of medical testing, fitness testing, all those things to make sure that you're fit and ready for the role. Really, that they're not taking on somebody who's going to suffer or going to struggle. With the job. So it's a big deal. It's a big process, and it always feels like there's another step.
Yeah.
But what I would say is, by that point, at least for me, to get to the end of that, I think you're very sure about what you're doing.
So I just didn't have a clue when I was younger. So it's so interesting to see exactly how those things work. So if we move on then and think about kind of your job now, so I imagine there's probably not one answer to this, but is there any sort of typical day? Like what might your day look like? How long are the shifts that you do and things like that?
Yeah. Well, my typical day, I mean, my shift patterns are 12-hour shifts spread over 4 days. Well, 4 days of 12-hour shifts.
Yeah.
So I do four on, 4 off, which is obviously lovely because you get 4 days off, but you work really quite intensively over that period.
Yeah.
So you need the 4 days. You need the time. We also work 24/7. So
right.
There are night shifts there. So you might be finishing on your last day. You might be finishing at 7 a.m. in the morning. And therefore, realistically, your first rest day is a bit of a write-off because you're in bed trying to get some sleep. But yes, so the 12-hour shift. My day-to-day will be, I'll get there early, get changed into my uniform, and then I'll go and get my kit. So vests, radios, my pulver spray, all that kind of thing in advance of my shift time starting.
Yeah.
So I'm upstairs and then logged onto the systems to basically check my inbox.
Right.
And see what's come in when I haven't been there, especially if it's the first day back after 4 days off, a 4-day rest day. Because one thing that's probably prevalent and one thing that surprised me a lot about it is the amount of desk-based stuff that you have to do.
Okay.
You think that, and there is a large part of it is getting out of the station, out on the ground, dealing with people, dealing with incidents, arresting people, all those kind of things, putting the blues and twos on and going to jobs, things like that, going up to hospitals and things, seizing things. But a lot of it is this sort of workload management. And so I need to, so I would get my head around. So I get my head around what's in my inbox, what demands are being made of my time. So then when I start my shift, I know that, well, today I definitely need to do X, Y, Z in addition to whatever comes through the door. And then, my shifts vary a little bit. Some shift patterns, it's picking up what we call packages out of the cells. So that's basically people who've been arrested overnight or earlier on that day that need us to sort of process. So interview, build case files for and get in front of the CPS, which is the Crown Prosecution Service, for a charge.
Okay.
Or it's just reacting to whatever job comes in. Like if there's a high risk missing person, then it's all hands to the pump. You're out the door with the gear on, looking for that person, being tasked by sergeants and things. So I would say it's that there are some constants, but there's a lot of diversity in your day. There's a lot of difference.
Yeah. I felt like when I was asking that question, I was like, I'm sure there's not going to be a set like routine that you have. Obviously, you'll have your own kind of personal things that you'll do. And like you were saying, you kind of get there early, get yourself sorted, get your kit on. But then throughout the day, obviously, like you said, it'll be a lot of reacting to things as they come in and being flexible.
I mean, I think at the core of it, though, it's like any job or anything that you want to do well. It's about preparing yourself and being organised. And at least for me anyway, I need to be organised and have a clear idea as to that have I got everything that I think I'm going to need in my day? What's coming up? What can I predict? If I can't predict it all, that's fine. But what can I predict, and then what can I manage?
Yeah, exactly.
I used to do that in my old job as well, and that was far less in high intensity, but it helped me there, and it's helped me in part-time jobs in the past, just having an idea as to, what's coming up, what have I got. And I think all those kind of core skills that you develop, throughout your sort of education, throughout your part-time work, jobs that you think probably, this isn't a proper job, or this is just a part-time thing to get us a bit of pocket money and let us to go out and about or spend or buy my clothes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised, like all the things you pick up that
Definitely.
actually end up feeding in, So I think you're right in that when you ask the question, it's how long is a bit of string, really, I suppose. But at the same time, there's a lot of core competencies and core facets to my day that I either try to incorporate or are just required to be there to try and bring some kind of order to things to try and get stuff done, So.
Yeah. Fab. So if we kind of, if we're thinking about that, then obviously you mentioned that something that surprised you about the role was kind of the amount of time that you would spend at your desk and completing those kind of more maybe administrative things that come alongside the job. So if I move on to kind of my next question then, what is it that you enjoy most about your job? Is there one thing that you could kind of
put my finger on? I think that that sort of difference, that every day I know there's going to be some constants, but there's going to be a whole load of things that I can't control and that are going to come through the door. And I think that's a huge difference to what I've previously done. I could probably plan my week. I could do a to-do list for my week. Obviously. Can barely do a to-do list for the next 6 hours, at this one, because just various stuff comes in. So I think that's probably the best bit. My personal favourite bits are getting out and about, which is why I changed my job, was to sort of not be at my desk as much as I was, because I was working sort of a 50-hour desk job week or an office job in an engineering firm. So it was to get up and get out. And I think the fact I'm dealing with people as well. And that's a big thing for me. I think not everybody's the same, and so there's a whole host of challenge there. And so I think that's probably the best bit, is you just literally don't know what you're going to get a lot of the time. So
huge variety. No, and I think if you're somebody who loves that kind of, like you were saying, a diverse day, and you don't really, you can't plan for everything, and somebody who can kind of work well under pressure and be adaptable and flexible and things like that. I think it's obviously that the police is that as a job. It's very unpredictable and all about reacting to things.
I would say though that because of the size of the forces of the police, same as the NHS, I imagine if you spoke to nurses and things, there's probably a job for everybody. And frontline policing might not be the job for that person, but there are a huge number of departments and a huge number of different roles within the police force that either aren't police officers or are police officers, but doing very sort of specific things. And they can often be far more predictable, far more desk-based, far more kind of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday,
that's such a good point. There are lots of other roles within the police that people maybe don't immediately think of when you think of kind of joining the police, but actually, like you were saying, there probably is kind of a role for everyone, and a role for kind of the different ways that people like to work and things like that, but often people just think, well, if you join the police, you're a police officer, that's it. And actually there are kind of a wide range of careers out there.
Definitely.
So just kind of bringing it back then, obviously the kind of point of our interviews and the point of these episodes each day is really to kind of support young people in thinking about their futures, what they can do as careers, kind of inspire young people, which I think kind of this interview will definitely do. What I would kind of ask you, and I've asked kind of other people that we've interviewed as well, is there anything that you wish you'd known about your career, or any tips that you have for young people considering the police?
I think given what it is, unless you know a police officer, unless they're a family friend or the parent or something like that, it's often hard to get sort of real information about what the job's like. I think because it's quite a closed doors job, you often only see what is being publicised and what's out on television or what's being put out there with recruitment in regards to the recruitment. So my tip would have been for myself would be try and speak to somebody who does the job day to day and get kind of like a real feel for it. Because I'm not saying that what you see or what you're being shown isn't true, because it is, completely is. They're not lying to you. The job is what you see, but also the job is a lot more than what you see.
Yeah.
What you're being shown. And it's just to make sure that you're fully aware of, like, you know, lots of the different sides of the dice, really. So you go in as prepared as you can be to make that decision about the career that you want to take. I think that's the same for any job, really. It's if you want to be an accountant, you go and speak to accountants, you try and do work placements there, you try and do that and get as much information about it as you can. And it just that would be a tip for myself. What was the second part of the question?
So just kind of anything that you wish you'd known, but I suppose that probably ties into that, really, kind of just knowing the actual breadth of the kind of career and the job role, maybe.
I think as well, if you're talking about sort of skills and things, I would recommend to try and develop in advance or during the process would be people skills. Yeah. Anything and everything you do, I think, is you can deal with a person, whether that's a victim, an offender, a witness, a third party. You're going up to hospital, speaking to nurses, you're speaking to members of your own team. Yeah. Speaking to members of different services, all that kind of thing. It's about being able to build rapport, being able to build relationships and have conversations with various different types of people. And that's the biggest thing. On the other side of that, I would say as well, work with management. I think if you can get in a position, you can develop this when you're at school, about managing your homeworks and your courseworks and your revision timetables and all this kind of thing. These are all core competency skills that if you were to pursue this career, that would serve you really, really well, because you wouldn't be overloaded by stuff. You'd be able to organise it, manage your time, and that would allow you to then be more successful. So I would say, number one, people skills by far. Number two, manage your workload and your time. And that's probably the two big skill sets I would say would probably serve you well.
I think that's so important as well to kind of remind young people, because sometimes it can feel like when you're at school, you think, what am I doing all of this for? And what am I actually kind of gaining? And I think, obviously, other than the kind of academic aspect of it, it is those like transferable skills that really are transferable. And I know you mentioned earlier kind of from your first part-time job and those kind of skills, and it's just being in the workplace, I think is really, really important, just getting familiar with the process of going to work and things like that, in the same way that just being at school and managing your own kind of independent study is so important for a number of careers. And obviously we can relate that to the police, but I think it's so good for young people to remember that kind of at this time when you're in kind of year 11, or even if you're in kind of college or sixth form, you are in the perfect place to start developing those transferable skills.
Completely. And I don't think it's easy to think when you leave school or you leave your colleges, is that you kind of wipe the slate clean. And you definitely don't. You take with you everything that you've developed over that period, and all the experiences that you've developed, that you have over that time, and don't sort of cheapen what you do develop over that time, because it might not be perfect, but it's a step forward in whatever it is. And so when you get to 16, 18, you put yourself in a good position just by sort of recognising what you do have.
Amazing. That's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on and letting me interview you about your career. Just for kind of anyone who is listening, if you are interested in any more information about kind of working within the police, I will leave some links in the description of this video.